Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to give you guys a quick update on the Sony NEX-7. So lately I've been covering cameras like the pocketable RX100 as well as the NEX-5R, which is the successor to the Sony NEX-5N. But today I wanted to focus on the NEX-7 for a couple of reasons. The first one is that this is the only member of the NEX lineup that a refresh has not been announced for as of yet. In all likelihood, a full-frame version of this camera will be its successor and will come out sometime in the first or second quarter of 2013. So for the next 3 to at least 6 months, I would say, you're still looking at the top-of-the-line NEX camera on the market. And Sony reaffirmed that yesterday by pushing out a firmware update for it. So we've moved from version 1.00 to 1.01, and that's really what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. So while that may not sound like a big improvement, only going from 00 to 01, trust me, it is. First of all, let's start off with the thing I'm most excited about: better wide-angle performance in the imaging department. Now, that's not to say that the NEX-7 was terrible with wide angles, but we've only really got the 16mm. On the other hand, Sony is about to launch the 10 to 18mm, so whether it's a matter of that they're just preparing this camera for that new piece of glass, which of course is going to be a very good match for the 5R and NEX-6, or they are just trying to enhance overall performance of the 7 since it will remain the top-of-the-line flagship model for a while, I'm not sure. But either way, very promising to hear better performance in the wide-angle department, considering there is a very limited selection of wide-angle options for this, as well as every other NEX camera on the market that is, obviously leaning on E-mount lenses alone. So, beyond the wide-angle improvement, another important thing is that they've improved the range for bracketing. You now have 3 increments, so that's certainly a nice touch. Also, they've improved the ability, or I should say, the visual cue for the flexible focus spot, so that's also a good thing. Another really important thing that I think most of you will care about is the ability to disable the movie mode button. Now, when we're shooting with this, yes, there is a defined area for your thumb there, but obviously people with larger hands aren't going to be able to stay in that confine, and as a result, that movie mode button is often accidentally hit. As a result, you're no longer shooting the photos that you wanted to. So Sony listened to their users. Now, with just a couple of clicks, you can turn this button off completely. It will be functionless. I would have liked to have seen Sony give you the ability to program it, but that's a very small gripe considering this resolved what for many, not myself really so much, it wasn't a big issue for me, but I know for many of you out there, it was a big issue and a very easy one to fix. Also, the fact that we got a firmware update does tell us that Sony is standing behind this camera and will do so with other flagship models down the line. Now, a lot of you out there I know are going to be disappointed by the fact that the 5N did not get an update, but that's because it was at end of life and the 5R is already out there to replace it. So I think Sony's looking at it from the perspective of that you're getting a great deal on the 5N right now anyway at its sub $500 price point. That should be enough in itself, and I understand that position. The 7, on the other hand, like I mentioned, not being replaced, so it makes sense, at least for the time being, to improve this camera and get it ready for lenses like the 10 to 18mm that were really made for it, as well as the NEX-6 and whatever the next successor of the 7 will have in store for us. Like I said, it may be full frame. Whatever they end up doing, we know that we need better lenses, and Sony is preparing us for that. They know people that are shopping for the 7 or already own this body are most likely to spend the $850 that wide-angle lens will retail for, so it makes perfect sense to give us that update. So haven't put it to the test yet in regard to the wide-angle improvement, but I will and get back to you guys. Of course, I'll be testing it with the 16mm pancake that I reviewed in the past, since it is the only wide-angle I have for it. Another update I want to talk about is the photo review ability, because many of you out there may know, if you own this camera already, the NEX-7 did suffer from a bit of lag in that department, and as a result I ended up turning the review process off altogether. I would rather just keep shooting continuous shots and hope to get the shot I want rather than miss the shot because of how slow the review was. Well, now it's pretty much instantaneous, the way it should have been out of the box. So a lot of these updates seem like things that Sony could have done out of the box. The good news is that they've done it now, which they could have decided to forego altogether. So a clear investment by Sony in this product, a clear backing, and another good thing is the obvious acknowledgement of user feedback, something all companies need to do. And frankly, Sony isn't really known for that, so it's refreshing to see them do it. Like these updates, we'll get back to you guys on the wide angle improvement, but overall, definitely a very nice addition to the NEX-7's functionality. Also want to point out, they also pushed out new firmware updates for all, well, not all, but the SCL 18 to 200 millimeter lens you're looking at here, basically the kit lenses, the 18 to 55, as well as the 55 to 210. And I will include a link to the firmware update from Sony in the description in case you guys want to go ahead and download that. It takes about 10 minutes, or that's how long it took me to do the update for the NEX-7 over a Windows 7 machine. But back to the lenses, basically what that will do is will enable you to use the hybrid autofocus system that both the 5R and the 6 and foreseeably whatever other future camera update comes out to the 7 or even lower end models with the hybrid autofocus. That new firmware update version for the lens itself will give you hybrid autofocus. Keep in mind you will need to perform that update on a body like the 5R or NEX-6 that has hybrid autofocus. In other words, you cannot update a lens to the new firmware version from a body lacking it like the NEX-7 or 5N. So don't think that you're going to get some trade-off there or even be able to perform the update, because you won't unless you have one of the latest NEX bodies. But overall, that pretty much covers the firmware update. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.